Wirtz looks like he's trying too hard. He's so desperate to make an impression that he's buzzing around to no general purpose. It doesn't matter that he's a lovely player to watch. Aesthetically very pleasing. It doesn't really make a difference that he works incredibly hard. You're buying someone to make a difference in games. He has not dominated a single game. I worry that he's the sort of player who looks really, really good in a system. And if the system is not working, Wirtz is not effective.
We back like the Chicago Bears. Premier League Week 11 played from start to finish at Michael Buffer levels of let's get ready to rumble. The Arsenal concede a shot on goal. They did. And wait for it. 2 goals inside 1 game. Sunderland are a true human inspiration. Liverpool are worse than the federal aviation disruptions. Manchester City euphoric. Is Pep the one who knocks? Spurs and United serve up a mood swing classico, a game which both teams will feel like they won and lost, but ultimately drew. What is this strange alchemy brought on by the Premier League's launch of a winter football? The only sad thing is, now we've got to wait 2 weeks to find out what happens next, but for now it's my honour and delight to welcome the Oracle of Harrogate, the mystic of North Yorkshire, the one who ate all the chocolate oranges. It's Mr. Rory Smith.
Hi, Rog.
How was you trying to be happy, but being dead inside? Welcome to that, because condolence at losing. Now you're used to it.
Yeah, the pain's starting to wear off, to be honest, and I find myself in this position of trying to engage both my rational and animal brain, one of which is understanding and explanatory and trying to find reason, and the other is not, Rog. It's an interesting feeling.
I like that. My animal brain is just like a little worm, just there, just kind of worming around, thinking Dwight McNeil thoughts. But there are now, Raw, in our compressed, hyperbolic, insane world of football now, there are fans alive who've never seen a great Liverpool, a Liverpool that win things.
Yeah, there's what, 3 months of fans, I guess, who've only ever seen Liverpool being rickety and brittle. That's all it is. There aren't that many fans alive who've never seen Liverpool win. They did win last Tuesday. But there are people being born into an era when Liverpool are a very uncertain football team, Rog.
Yeah, I love it. In which Sunderland are a juggernaut. Welcome, fans. Before we get into this, I do want to give huge thanks to the Bank of America, the official bank of US Soccer, and the FIFA World Cup 2026 for supporting the Men in Blazers Media Network. Discover what's possible in sports and in life. What would you like the power to do? Honestly, I'd like the power to get into the football. But before we do, one thing I want to get your take on, because it's a new thing, something that is inescapable in football. It's new, it's strange. The new ritual, almost of compulsory halftime booing, Raw, used to be a rare thing. A soundtrack towards the end of a season for a team who were rudderless in the relegation zone. But we now hear booing routinely at halftime at Chelsea and Spurs this weekend. 2 teams in the Champions League, 2 teams now chasing Champions League football. Halftime booing rule. What is it? Is this just what happens online, reflecting football, now actually coming offline into football?
I think it's been mounting. Like, the booing has become much more frequent in the last few years. As you say, it used to be very rare, and in quite extreme cases, that a home crowd would boo their own team. Normally at Goodison Park. I have to take my shots where I can get them these days, Rog.
By the way, welcome at the Everton Women's Football Club. You're taking shots at our women's team.
That's below the belt, that is. It really is. I think there's 2 things. One is as football has treated fans more like customers, they behave more like customers. So there's an alienation for fans in the stadium because they've paid a lot of money for tickets. They feel, I think, that if they're not being given value for money, they feel much less inclined to think that they have a participatory role in what's happening. But the other thing, it strikes me, is a bleeding of online activity into the offline world, which is the extent to which all of this is taken as having total, absolute, definitive meaning. That it's in some way, if your team is losing, it is in some way robbing you of part of your identity. And I think that nature of fandom has changed. That's a new element to it. It always mattered. Football has always mattered to fans, obviously. But I don't think it's ever felt quite as elemental and quite as existential as it does now. It wasn't previously as all-consuming. So when you see your team 1-0 down at home at half-time, despite being 3rd in the Premier League, you are thinking, well, this is potentially a disaster. Think about the way that the games are covered. Think about the way that the discourse around football happens. everything is pitched up to 11. Everything is so kind of hyperbolic, so desperate, so urgent, that you feel at the slightest setback as though everything's falling apart, and it's at that moment that you boo.
I always remember at Goodison Park, like there would, in dark times, I've seen many of them, it would just be quiet. There would always be somebody who would jump up, normally with their jeans showing a lot of ass crack, and they'd jump up and turn around to the rest of the fans and go, "Get behind the lads!" And everyone would lose their mind and start cheering again. Here, in modern football, that person's doing the opposite. It's like, all right, let's lead the booing. Our team are dominating against Wolves, but we've not scored. Let's give them the boos. I mean, it is fascinating thinking about where this goes. This is, to me, like the buckling of football to social media, and what happens, online, those behaviours becoming real. And I don't know where it goes as it infiltrates real life. Will football crowds roar? Well, instead of sending nudes online, will fans just turn up at the game completely nude and then just do TikTok dances? Which actually sounds pretty good.
That would, in many ways, be more constructive than booing, Rog, to be honest. That would be a better response. I'm not sure where it stands legally. I don't know whether that's allowed.
I've just described St James's Park on a Wednesday night, haven't I?
I was at Sunderland at the weekend, and the only way I can describe the kind of euphoria that swept Sunderland, and that is a stadium where nobody is booing, Rog. No one is booing at the Stadium of Light these days. The only way I can describe it is that when Dan Ballard scored that goal to give Sunderland the lead, the man directly in front of the press box immediately removed his shirt. That was the way the way he could express joy. So maybe that's the problem we've got, that when you want to express sadness, you boo. But the act of expressing joy in a lot of cities in Britain is to remove clothing. And that's a silent thing.
By the way, and no biggie, because remember, at the Stadium of Light, it's pants optional. Okay, let's start this with a toast. I want to raise my third first Michelob Ultra of the day to Gio Reyna, 22-year-old, really fallen prince who was promised, a gent who is the talk of the US soccer bubble after a surprise return from exile, called up into the national team for the two friendlies to come. I say surprise because Mauricio Pochettino is a coach who has preached players need to perform for their clubs. That's been his cardinal rule. Poch has since hailed Gio as a, quote, special situation. And the reality is, that special situation is really just vibing off the memory as Gio is an elite footballer in the last cycle rather than what he's done in the present day. He's played just 147 minutes for German duffers Borussia Mönchengladbach this season. I think mustered just 69 minutes for the US under Poch. Nice. But humanly, having spoken to Gio last week, you find an interview that's on our YouTube now. I find it impossible to listen to his journey, the challenges he's been through, without really, really aching for Gio. He was a kid caught in a world of darkness that turned everything that he cares about, football, the national team, his family, completely upside down. And you throw in the injuries that he suffered since the last World Cup, I think 8 separate injuries. I can't imagine the psychological toil, really the hard miles that he's had to walk. So make no mistake, also, the US team needs the kind of player that Gio once was in the 2022 cycle creatively. But humanly, we forget this guy is still only 22, he's still a kid, and I wish him so well.
There's a mercurial quality to Gio Reyna that's really important for the US, I think. Christian Pulisic obviously is the standard bearer of his generation of that team. Pulisic is ultra reliable. That you kind of know what you're getting. Reyna is not that. He never has been that. But there's a level of imagination, of creativity, I think, that Gio can offer at his best that is lacking in much of the rest of the team. All of whom work incredibly hard, but maybe lack that spark. I guess what Pochettino's doing is gambling that there is a way to get that out of Gio Reyna, even if it's relatively brief. He doesn't need him to perform for an entire season. He doesn't need him to put together a whole campaign. What he needs is Gio Reyna to be Gio Reyna for a month. And that, thinking back to what Gio Reyna was when he first came through, thinking about the excitement of who he was, what he could do, it's a gamble worth taking, to be honest.
God, I remember the first time Erling Haaland came on this show after his first 3 months at Manchester City. He just kept talking about Gio Reyna next, kept talking to Gio Reyna through our show. Those were the days, those were the heights, that was the moment. I love your framing. It's like the Langston Hughes poem, "Let America be America again." Let Gio Reyna be Gio Reyna again. But we will be breaking it down in person. Quick one, Boston. We're shipping up to you, baby. December the 6th, we will be at the Roadrunner Boston for a night of joy, laughter, hopefully a modicum of footballing insight. We will break down the entire World Cup field. And when I say we, I mean myself, Raw. You're making your much anticipated return to America.
I am. I'm coming to New England for the third time in my life, Roger. I'm very excited.
Have you been to Boston before?
I have been to Boston before.
It is Rory country. It really is.
It's a site of tremendous British pain.
Which was one of many reasons that I adore Boston and Massachusetts in every regard. Also joining us, Clint Dempsey, Hurt Gomez. Rumour is even the great James Horncastle is going to be with us, Rook.
This is a dream. That is just a dream lineup, isn't it? Horncastle, Dempsey, Gomez. What more could you ask for?
By the way, that's quite good. That's quite a good front three. We have more incredible special guests. Let me just say, I can't tell you who they are, but they are magnificent. Tickets on sale now. Link below. Come be with us as we delight in all of the storylines and the inevitable group of death. Group of life, I think, that the US are going to be in. I do see them being with Cape Verde. And just the hope that goes along with this moment. Big thanks to all our good friends at Bank of America for helping make this possible. In New York City, we'll be doing a live stream of the draw itself on December the 5th at the Grand Ballroom in the Manhattan Center. Tickets also available for that. Come and raise a beer with us, but Raw to the football. Let's start at the top of the table. Sunderland 2, Arsenal 2, just a magnificent human spectacle. Made all the more magnificent by the fact you were there, Raw.
Yeah, I really felt that added something to it, to be honest, Roger. No, it's the first time I've been to Sunderland for a while. Let's say at least 3 years. And it's wonderful to see how much it's changed. The whole city centre's having this huge upgrade. A reader/listener actually got in touch with me to say, next time you go, take note of the fact there's now a footbridge connecting the centre of Sunderland to the stadium. And the sight of that, like an hour and a half before the game, where you just see this endless tide of people swarming from the bars in the city centre, through all the redevelopments that are happening along the banks of the Weir towards the stadium. It gives it that kind of feel of a pilgrimage to a cathedral. And just as you get that kind of sense in Newcastle, just up the road, of St James's Park as being the thing that the city is built around, it kind of turns the Stadium of Light into the centrepiece of Sunderland. It is where the road leads to, and there's something really nice about that.
There is. I've been to, it reminds me very much of Pittsburgh, when the Steelers are playing and just walking across the bridge to the game, and the whole city is just cloaked in yellow and black and magnificent, and there's a sense of civic pride surging, pulsating around the football team, which is where football is at its best. That is how it feels to be in Sunderland at the moment. And Americans, it is far mentally for many English people to get from London to Sunderland. I could not encourage you more to get up there. Newcastle, Sunderland, all points north. It is just a raw and raucous and remarkable footballing experience built on true local passion. And into that wandered mighty, impregnable Arsenal. Arsenal have 8 consecutive clean sheet wins. No one had done 9 before. In the midst of a 10-game winning run, most under Arteta, outscoring opponents 21-1 over the course of the last 10 games. They'd last conceded a goal 28th of September. This is even more magnificent to me. They'd only allowed 12 shots on target in 12 hours, 56 minutes of football. This is gargantuan in terms of the achievement, and we've lauded it on this show. But throw into that, the Sunderland hadn't beaten Arsenal in 16 long years, but you wouldn't have known that from the opening whistle. You were there. Sunderland laid into them from the off. The fans bellowing. Isidore, a pulsating talent. Arsenal withstood the initial long throw barrage, sought to assert themselves countering. Fascinatingly, Sunderland have pushed their advertising hoardings closer to the field to stop Arsenal's Declan Rice. They'd seen how much of a run-up he takes for his long throws. They pushed the advertising hoardings. The manager was asked about it. He said, no, it must have just been the wind. But this is mind games. This is modern tactics.
Yeah, it's something that teams used to do against Tony Pulis' Stoke, which is not a comparison that Arsenal fans like. But it is true that when Rory Delap, who was the sort of howitzer launching midfielder, who hilariously didn't know he had a long throw before he joined Stoke.
Yeah, by the way, I once interviewed Rory Delap. I need to find that interview. I did it for ESPN magazine. He spoke to me for about an hour and a half quite beautifully about how he had built up. Stoke didn't know he could throw it.
They didn't.
But the kid was like, as a kid, he was like spent most of his youth throwing stones across a river, and then got really into the javelin and the discus. Those were the places where he really learned that he could throw things. Yes, by the way, listeners, you listeners who've never seen Liverpool as a good team, he is Liam's dad, but keep going, Ro.
Rory Stoke, you're quite right, Rog. Stoke didn't know. They didn't realise that that Rory Delap had that weapon. And I was with Asmir Begovic, who was a goalkeeper for Stoke the other day, and he said that the best thing about Rory Delap's throw wasn't just that he could launch it into the box, it was the fact that he could take you 50 yards up the pitch when you're under pressure. They just tell him to launch it down the line. But yeah, it was something that teams did to stop Delap, was they'd shift the hoardings into the closest possible into the pitch, because it means they don't get the run up. And it was interesting that Rice in that first half had 2 or 3 attempts at a long throw, and none of them worked. And by the end, I think he was taking them short, so he'd figured out, I can't do this. I can't do this with the advertising hoardings here. And to that, you have to say, fair play Sunderland.
God bless. It was actually, though, if you watch the first 2 Declan Rice, they were always thrown in with confusion by the player. Couldn't quite work out why it wasn't working, and it was they
didn't have that flat trajectory, which is what he needs to cause that chaos. They were sort of looped in, and impressive distance, wrong form.
God bless. Arsenal, though, settled to find a new strategy, which is to counter at any moment. Sunderland was sloppy in possession, but the game turned on 36 minutes. Xhaka had felled Mourinho, then theatrically stood over him. Symbolic images of shifting allegiances and competitive fire. Roofs sent a free kick booming into the Arsenal box. Defence didn't clear. And it was Dan Ballard. What poetry. That powerhouse of a centre-back. A kid who joined the Arsenal Academy, aged 8. I think it was in and out, to be fair, at the academy until the age of 22, when Sunderland brought him permanently. He'd been on loan a lot before then, but he took all that sense of wounded pride and lover spurnness, that vengeance, took it out on the ball, just blasted a total dinger into the corner of the net. Peter Drury, speaking in glorious tongues on the spot, bellowed, "Dan Ballard with belief and thrust," which I just love. I love when Drury does that. That noise coming out of Drury is just and it matched the moment. Clean sheet run gone. That's a shot on goal. First goal conceded by Arsenal in 13 hours, 31 minutes. I don't like to be hyperbolic, Raw. You were there in the stadium. Felt watching along on television as historic as when the Berlin Wall fell down.
It was, as I say, Roger, it was a take your shirt off kind of moment. We were all topless. It's just what you have to do. The belief and thrust line about Dan Ballard actually could be a title of a J.G. Ballard essay, to be honest. That is the sort of subject.
And thrust!
The sort of subject he enjoyed. It was really redolent to me of the greatest film ever made, which is Independence Day with Will Smith and
controversial
and Bill Pullman. What a speech! But there's a line in that, and I said this to a couple of people at the game, and they looked at me completely blankly. So I'm going to try it again, Rog. I think you might be the right audience.
Did you tell him, lad?
Does this remind you of Independence Day? What? Put your shirt back on. I don't know how well you know that film. It is the greatest film ever made. I've seen it several times. There's a point.
Asterisk non-Scorsese, but keep going.
There's a point where Randy Quaid,
non-Wes Anderson. Randy Quaid, yes,
flies his plane into the giant laser weapon that the aliens are using to destroy the cities, and it makes the ship explode.
Of course.
And somebody says, one of the US military people says, get on the phone to everyone all around the world, tell them how to bring these sons of bitches down. And watching Sunderland launch a long ball at Arsenal, it did make me think a little bit, they've figured this out, because Arsenal want to bully teams in the nicest possible way. They want to physically impose themselves. They want teams to kind of cower, not just at their technical expertise, and Arsenal are technically brilliant, we shouldn't ever take that away from them, but they want to be able to force you physically into your shell, and then they want to expose that shell. And Sunderland didn't let them do that. They stood up to them. They were up for the battle. Ballard, in particular, was a really sort of fitting scorer because Arsenal kept slinging balls at him, and Dan Ballard's played enough Championship football to quite enjoy that. He's not one of these fancy Dan defenders who's come through, an academy and had it all easy in front of him. He's had to go out on loan to Blackpool and to Millwall. He will have had to face lots of teams who take, with rather less kind of class and elan, the same approach to attacking as Arsenal. And he looked really happy at having loads of stuff to head. Just loved it. Just loved the headers. And then Sunderland's attack was unashamedly direct. And I wonder whether more teams will look at the way Sunderland played Arsenal and think there's a decent chance, however you play Arsenal, that you're not going to win, and you're probably not going to get a point. But to stand a chance, maybe you have to do to Arsenal what Arsenal do to you.
God bless. And I don't mean to go all independence down your ass, but Bill Pullman, we will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. We're going to live on. That's what it felt like in that moment. Randy Quaid, by the way, sounds like the kind of American soccer player who Sunderland would have signed in the early 2000s. Also, as the president, to fight the aliens, just move the advertising hoardings a little bit so they can't do their stuff. That is one you've got for the sequel. But how would Arsenal respond was fascinating, particularly without Gyökeres, out with an injury. They kind of laboured, to be honest. They were cumbersome. It was like cavalry in heavy armour getting stuck in a bog for a while. Sunderland, so impressed by their mentality, their confidence, their belief. At half-time, what a cliffhanger it felt like. Sunderland was so organised, communicating so well. There was suspense, there was intrigue that was hanging. Remember, Sunderland, they themselves had conceded just 8 times, second least in the league so far. It felt like Xhaka was almost controlling the entire starting 11 with his force of will on his vengeance tip. The noise was ecstatic, but Sunderland almost became too overconfident, pushing forward, being caught out. Lafay, it was cruel. It was him who was dispossessed by Rice, who was just hunting at this point desperately for the ball like an apex predator in a nature documentary. Eze sprang, Saka in. One touch to drag it onto his right, second touch to lash it near post. Arteta on that bench struck the perfect balance in that moment between incredible relief and joy. It just felt like, woof, what was that? Open play, ole, ole, they can do it all, Raw.
But it was such a shame the way it came about. I mean, the way that Arsenal seized on that opportunity, you can't fault. But for a performance from Sunderland that had been so assured, but also so kind of compact and economical and in the nicest possible way, like unornamental. They hadn't tried to overcomplicate things. They'd understood that the key is simplicity, making sure you make the right decision every time. Don't give them a sniff. For Lafay to kind of the first moment he dawdled to be punished by Arsenal, it kind of illustrated why Arsenal are so dangerous. But at the same time, for Sunderland, it was a quite bitter pill to swallow, I think.
Yeah, it was a total mood change in the wake of that. Sunderland started to play like a collective desperate. They knew in that moment they had to find an equaliser for Gabriel's inevitable set-piece goal. Zubimendi crashed a volley off the crossbar. Arsenal thought they won it. Free kick not cleared. The ball at Trossard's feet. It was a really great... I think it was Calafiori who ran outside him with an overlapping run that distracted the back line. And Trossard just went happy feet. Paul Skeens on that ball, 3 feet high and rising. That gem, we know this, he only scores so he can do the old Warby Parker celebration. Arsenal tried to shut the game down, took off Eze for Mosquera. Arteta, honestly, will pull the all-international break through that move. Raya had to make a save. He didn't know that was in his job description. Smothered from Robbie, but he was helpless late on. 95th minute. Sunderland, pugnacious, audacious, tenacious, all the aciousness his. That ball dumped in. I think it was Ballard who headed down, and it was Brobby being held by Gabriel. Brave in his own way, unleashed a kind of, I don't know what it was. It was like an entrepreneurial, just quasi-bicycle kick over a complete... Watching it again, Raya's face was, do you not know who I am? The shot was gobsmacking.
You're not meant to put the ball into this area. You're not meant to shoot at goal. You're not meant to physically dominate Gabriel Magalhaes. Yeah, there was a lot of things that weren't meant to happen in that goal. But it was richly deserved because prior to that, Rog, Sunderland should have scored twice. David Raya produced 2 superb saves, one of which I think may have been offside, but we'll never know. And Sunderland were pushing. They'd realised they'd stayed in the game with Arsenal, which is hard enough to do. And with the last 10-15 minutes, they thought, okay, well, we might as well have a crack here. We're 1 down. If we lose 3-1, it's not a disaster, but we might yet take a point. They got what they deserved.
Yeah, I mean, Dan Boller, by the way, had an incredible moment of joy at the very death. Another epic moment, a block at the last. Labrie, his manager, had an incredible quote at the end. He said, "Here at Sunderland, we have many players who will give their life to keep a clean sheet or stop a shot. They're live for. Sunderland remain unbeaten at home, 12 points off 6 at the Stadium of Light. They deserve their joy. To watch their team score first and last against league-leading Arsenal to get this draw. I mean, you can analyse their run so far. You can tell me that they've not played massive teams. This is a massive team, and I am so bloody thrilled, Raw, for this proud team who've really suffered. And I'm saying that as an Everton fan. They deserve every joy.
Yeah, the one thing that struck me being there really was that it is a city that feels hopeful. There's a lot of money being invested in Sunderland, the city. The footbridge, the kind of surroundings of the stadium are testament to that. And the club feel hopeful and aspirational and ambitious too. And, the way they kind of recruited in the summer, it was Kirill Louis-Dreyfus, who himself is a fascinating story.
Young owner.
The young owner whose dad was the owner, or certainly the chairman of Marseille, and who always swore that he would never go into sports ownership, and then kind of got dragged in a bit like, a younger Soprano. Like a young Corleone who just wants to go. Look, I want to work in marketing. Don't make me do this. I don't have any interest in this.
It's like if you've seen the movie Sexy Beast, it's very much like that. But go on.
And they kind of put the money in, and it was a sign, I think, or certainly what I took from it being there on Saturday, was it's not a club that's there to make up the numbers. They're happy to be in the Premier League, but that is not the limit of it. They are not accepting that they are one of those mate-weight clubs. They want to be here for the long haul, and they want to be involved. They want to sort of take on active participation. They've recruited really smartly. You looked at Luchel Gertruida, who the right-back / central defender / central midfielder, who is not the most glamorous player, but he's been linked with some big clubs. He played for RB Leipzig. He was, he's a big-name player, and he is in there at Sunderland looking like he's worth all of the kind of reputation he has. Same with Nordi Mukiele, who used to play for PSG. Obviously, Xhaka. They really went for it in the summer, and I think it's said to everybody at Sunderland, the fans, the city, the players, we're here to make an impact. We're not just here and happy to be along for the ride. We're really going to have a go. And they did that to Arsenal. As Mikel Arteta said afterwards, lots of big teams will go to Sunderland this season and not win.
See, that to me is the biggest takeaway. Arsenal's players look gobsmacked at the final whistle as they walked around, that last second agony, the clean sheet run over. I think we talked midweek with James Horncastle about just how much that meant to the backline. You could see when they were cruising to a win in the Champions League and a penalty they'd given away was overturned, how much they celebrated. They felt that. And they'll also feel the agony of letting that lead slip in a game in which the XG was Sunderland 0.53, the Arsenal 2.26, but it ended 2-2. I believe that in the moment of the final whistle. I believe it more now that the smoke is cleared, Raw. In the long scheme of the season, I do believe a point at Sunderland will be viewed as a very, very good result, especially with the North London derby up next.
Yeah, I think that's the likeliest outcome, is that other teams that are going for the title, and there might only be one or two of those left, Rog, will go to Sunderland and drop points. They might draw, they might lose. Chelsea's record against Sunderland is abysmal for a start. Sunderland, I think, will be thinking now about certainly a top half finish. They may not kind of be deluding themselves about the Champions League just yet, but they'll be looking at a top half finish, and there is no reason to believe they can't get one. And it may well be the case that in 6 months' time we're saying, well, Arsenal, did really well to take a point at Sunderland, to take a point at Crystal Palace, and to take a point at Bournemouth, because those points are valuable in the end. I think the one small, tiny little asterisk that you have to have is the run of fixtures that Arsenal have after the international break is a little bit trickier. They've had a relatively kind of late October, early November. The last 4 games have been Fulham, Burnley, Palace at home, and Sunderland. That is a good, nice, solid run of fixtures.
After a most brutal start, we have to...
After a reasonably brutal start. So they had a really good start in the sense that they weathered the storm. Obviously lost at Anfield, drew with City, but they won everything else. And then they had this kind-ish run, that they have made the most of. And that's all you can do. You have to play the fixtures. Spurs and Chelsea are both around the corner. I think we'll know a lot more about how psychologically solid Arsenal are, how able they are to withstand the pressure of looking like champions once they've played those games and we're a little bit closer to Christmas.
Quick question via our mailbag from Josh Siegel in Seattle, Washington, who writes the big one. Rog and Rory, Do you know if anyone's attempted to discover why there's such a high rate of distribution of trash on the pitch at the Stadium of Light compared to other venues? Is it deliberate home field advantage? Is there a scheme involving the stewards? Is there a way the betting companies are somehow involved? Or is it just the way the crisp packets blow in the breeze? Thanks for putting in the hard work on the important issues, your pal Josh. Raw. I mean, with the advertising hoardings is one thing. Do you think they have a guy who's just like, keep flinging the trash on, it confuses the opposition?
Unleash the waters. It is true, the two litteriest grounds in England are the Stadium of Light and the Hawthorns, where West Bromwich Albion play. And I don't have a scientific explanation for it, Rog, but I would imagine it is a numbers game. It is windier, and there are more people eating crisps.
You know, yeah, which makes me want to move there as someone that is a bit of a potato chip addict. I did do some research. I read a couple of back issues of Science Times. I think it's large crowd, inadequate number of trash cans, strong win, trifecta of Sunderland. But I will say, it's become a signature. It's like the Boston Garden, the Celtics, you know, the hardwood floor, signature difference. Bit of garbage on the field blowing around. That's their look. That's their aesthetics. That's their thing. Never change, Sunderland. Never change. It's working. Manchester City 3. What? Liverpool Football Club 0. Say it ain't so. I mean, Raw. Arsenal had drawn. There was just like a spice of hope over this game, tossed like a firecracker onto an inferno when these two giants collided to finish off the weekend. These two massive teams, the winners of the last 8 Premier League titles between them. Both, though, tempting to resummon their swagger. That's been the story of this season. Both trying to gird their loins to mask vulnerabilities that have made them, honestly, all the more human, all the more likeable, I'd say. Unfathomable for Liverpool. 6 losses in 7 games. Felt like we got beyond that. They spent the week straightening their crown, dispatching Aston Villa, doing Real Madrid, gestures towards business as usual. That's what we thought going into their City. Had man monster Erling Haaland and Pep Guardiola bringing up the massive milestone of 1,000 games as manager going back to 2007. Raw, I mean, it must have felt amazing for him. What are the odds that in his 1,000th game, well played Premier League script writers, well played, he'd face his greatest nemesis. And he did so, wink wink, by thanking the universe for giving him the perfect opponent. We know his win percentage, incredible, 71.57%. We know his tonnage of 39 trophies. He said, you can say about me, I am defined by dedication, passion, and love. In that, nobody beats me. Is that, when I read that, I was like, is that really raw? I admire him so bloody much. But do you think of those words, dedication, passion, love, when you think Pep Guardiola?
I mean, dedication and passion, yes. Love, I suppose it must be. I mean, I think there's an element where love and passion in that context are synonyms, aren't they, really? That's what he's talking about.
God, that's so fascinating. Love, I mean, for me, it's madness, mania, self-flagellation, weird cargo pants, brilliance.
Yeah, weird cargo pants, definitely. Interesting sartorial choices.
Obsession.
I was at a dinner where both Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola were in attendance years and years ago. I actually wrote about this briefly in The Correspondent the other day. And it was really interesting that they both gave little speeches, and Klopp felt much more personable. Like he was clearly very comfortable in that scenario. You know, big room full of mainly journalists, but lots of people, couple of jokes, this easy charisma, megawatt smile. Whereas Guardiola felt much more kind of awkward, seemed a little bit more subdued, didn't really like the vibe, which is fine, it's a room full of journalists. And Klopp said that he really envied Guardiola, his dedication, his ability to be obsessive about football. He said, Klopp doesn't see himself as being like that. Now, I'm guessing that's slightly untrue. I think Jurgen Klopp, to have been a manager for as long as he was, must be quite obsessive. But I think he always had other things that interested him. There were other things that he was really keen on. That will be true of Guardiola as well, of course, but I think even other managers look at Guardiola and think, you watch an awful lot of football, you analyse a game an awful lot, you really, really go overboard on the video analysis sessions. And I think that is dedication, obviously. It must be passion, but it's probably also a form of mania.
Yeah, I mean, it is. My dad was an obsessive mountain cyclist in his later years. I think Britain's top in the north of England, over 80 mountain climber. God bless him. He was insane for foot. I think he felt that as long as he cycled, he couldn't die. It's not how it works, kids. But he spent a lot of his last years just saying to people, because he knew all he could talk about was cycling, and he knew he was boring people. And he'd always say, "People say I'm obsessed. It's just passion." And I'd always say, "Dad, it's not. It's obsession. There's like a thin line, but once you're there, you're there." The way you describe Pep, he probably has a video analyst his video analysing, and he watches how he video analyses. Just like, I mean, it is obsession, and it is remarkable, and it's been incredible to witness. But to this game, and in the opening exchanges, whatever Pep had done to set it up, it became very clear, very quickly, how outgunned that Liverpool midfield was. I was told Alexis McAllister was returning to form, that Gravenberch was again imperious, but they were really tossed around early. And suddenly, Konate blew a clearance. The mischievous, hungry Doku swooped in, rounded Mamashvili in the Liverpool goal, still trying to fill Alisson's big bearded shoes. There was left knee to left foot, one of those, looks a bit soft, but the pace, I guess Doku was moving in real time. Small touch sends you completely off kilter. Penalty. Up steps Haaland, 98 goals, hoping to blast his way to 100 faster than any human being before him. All that raw milk, all that fatty steak. I mean, he swoops in on the ball like a cartoon cat, a huge giant kidnapper in a cartoon. He just kind of pace, hunger, oddly stooped posture, little legs speeding in. It wasn't a terrible penalty. Mamashvili just redeemed himself, shouted in Georgian, "Ball don't lie." You felt bloody good in that moment, didn't you? You felt like reprieve.
Yeah, I thought it was a very harsh penalty's wrong. It was a very unlucky penalty to concede. It was a tiny, tiny touch. The slenderest of touches that only VAR spotted. I think you can certainly make a case that it wasn't a clear and obvious error, if that means anything anymore. I don't know if it does, Rog. They keep changing the rules. But at the same time, that relief was tinged with an overwhelming sense of dread, if I'm honest, that City were very clearly better than Liverpool, and they were starting to really make them worried. And there were still 75 minutes to play.
Yeah, for me, the lesson is if you want to score a penalty, don't send up a YouTuber to do the job. Isn't that right, Ro?
Yeah, you can't. Certain things can't be done by content creators.
Yeah, just influencers.
Yeah.
It's pretty good for an influencer, though. I mean, this City, remember, I think I'd won just once in 8 games against Liverpool before this one. That's why this was such a shock, because they completely were undeterred, unfettered. Doku, I mean, so much improved this season, bossing that left flank. Mo Salah leaving Conor Bradley. Poor Conor Bradley, totally exposed. There was a moment when he ragdolled poor Conor at one point, and then the moment, 22 pass move from their own corner flag, upfield. Almost like, and this goal was fascinating. It was like an homage in many ways to Pep control ball of old. Pep, the second time he came on this show, he told me that he dreams of at night the perfect goal. I said, "What's the perfect goal?" He said, "Where every outfield player touches the ball." That was this one. But it finished in the modern way, the modern Pep Guardiola style, the old gods meeting the new, by Erling Haaland. He who laughs last, laughs longest. The ball swung in stunningly by Núñez. And Konate, who's become very much a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Konate kind of player, got his mechanics totally wrong, didn't clear it, simply nodded it onto Haaland. I don't know how much he knew, but the net effect was instinctual, just a looping header. And a roar victory, and me drunk into the gods in Valhalla. 28 goals on the season, 19 for his club in 18 games. Karate kick in the corner flag like a Norwegian Mateta. It was an incredible moment, inevitable.
Yeah, inevitable basically from kick-off, from the start of the season, from the birth of Erling Haaland. I don't know, from the moment that he was foretold. It was coming. There's never been a goal that was more coming. As you say, it was a slightly weird goal because I'm not sure it was a deliberate header, but then I guess if you're a 6'5" Norwegian jumping really, really high behind a central defender, it's the sort of stuff that happens. City deserved it. Lovely move. Yeah, maybe that blending of what Guardiola once was and what he has become, partly to accommodate this sort of super weapon that he's got up front.
It is a super weapon. It
is. I think you said months ago that the Premier League title was Arsenal versus Erling Haaland. That looks like how it's playing out. But it's a weapon that is really hard to stop. Konate, I guess you could say that it's indicative of where Liverpool are, that he is probably half a centimetre away from clearing that header and that goal not happening. But at the moment, it doesn't work like that for Liverpool.
Yeah, it doesn't. Nothing work. I mean, they struggle to muster a shot on goal. But set pieces are life itself. 39th minute, off a corner. Van Dijk had the ball in the back of the net with a quite potent header, beating a flailing Donnarumma. And then on the replay, you saw little Andy Robertson ducking out the ball's path near the goal line. And I love the way, by the way, he knew that there was going to be a problem. He just kind of tried to move back into the pack of players, almost whistling, nothing to see here. I thought this was crazy, bro. I'm a horrible person. I meant to just laugh at Liverpool. But yes, Andy Robertson was in the line of ball. He was not in the line of the sight of the goalkeeper. I think Mike Dean, the match official on Sky, said it was the correct decision in accordance with the current interpretation of the law. But I found the law 11. A player's offside if he's preventing an opponent from playing or being able to play the ball by clearly obstructing the opponent's line of vision or making an obvious action which clearly impacts on the ability of an opponent to play the ball. Robertson was not in the goalkeeper's line of vision. He didn't stop Donnarumma from being able to get the ball. I have no idea what offside is anymore, just like I don't really know what handball is, Ro.
Yeah, exactly the same. It's hard, as part of me wonders whether, obviously, do I think the goal should have stood because I wanted it to stand? It's very hard for me to separate those two things. My traditional instinct is that that in those situations you are involved, and the act of Robertson ducking out of the way might well draw Donnarumma's eye from the ball. I think you are inherently active if you have to duck. But I am reminded, and several Liverpool fans online brought this up, that Manchester City scored a goal last season at Wolves,
yes,
in which Bernardo Silva was stood in front of Jose Sarr, and that one was allowed to stand. So at the risk of being incredibly repetitive and deeply cliched and hackneyed, it's the consistency of the interpretation. I think by the standard of Bernardo Silva and Jose Sarr, that goal, the Van Dijk goal on Sunday, should have stood. It was fairly obviously, you could see from just the angles of it, that Andy Robertson had nothing to do with anything. Part of me thinks if you're ducking, you are probably involved in the play.
To be clear, this ruling, this moment ultimately was not the reason Liverpool lost. We will get to that. But I did hate for Verge. I mean, he'd run to the corner flag to celebrate. He shouted, "Come on! Let's go!" All those words of football, the shout in those moments of trying to, just articulate self-belief. Hugged everybody, but then suddenly had to jog back to his own half as if he was chill and always knew it was offside, no big deal. And I wrote in my notes, life is cruel. Football is crueler, because Virgil's misery was compounded just before half-time. Nico Gonzalez, this day really was one of the motifs of this weekend. This was the day in which footballers were told by the crowd to shoot. They rarely do anymore because modern football does not like the odds, the data of a long-range shot. But Nico Gonzalez did exactly what the crowd told him to. Low drive, of course. It had to be Big Verge. He put his leg up to block, span off his foot, past the keeper. God is cruel, Raw. Don't like to get theological on your ass, but ...
Yeah, it was a strange kind of wafting motion from Van Dijk. It lacked conviction. It looked really like non-committal in a way that another of the great defenders of his era, my son, would not have tolerated whilst keeping a clean sheet on Sunday in the really big game of Sunday, an 8-0 win
against.
Again, I don't want to say the team. It's not fair to say the other team's name, but we won 8-0. We kept a clean sheet for the first time in our history, and it was marked by several moments in which my son, who's quite tall and wears the number 4 like Virgil van Dijk, saw shots trundling towards him and properly swung his boot at it and booted the ball away.
Do you tell 8-year-olds that they should give their life to block?
I've told all of them that several times. Yeah,
you're only 8, but you should give your life to block the shot.
This is very serious.
Yeah.
No, it was a strangely non-committal thing for Van Dijk to do. It didn't look like a proper attempt at a block. But as much as I'm tempted to criticise him, I think the bigger mistake, and I'm not, despite my coaching qualifications here, Roger, I'm not, a tactical genius. Is it bad to let a player stand on the edge of your box and shoot? I think it might be. I think you should probably try and close that down. The City players from that short corner, blast from the past, played 3 passes on the edge of Liverpool's box, and not a single Liverpool player got anywhere near them, and that is astonishing.
Yeah, Pep Guardiola on the sideline in that moment, totally euphoric. His City got the soft penalty. They had the Reds goal ruled out. They had the deflecting scrub goal. But they seemed so much smarter, so much faster, so much sharper than Liverpool, who were so leggy. That was what was shocking. By the way, the City defensive backline played so brilliantly in this game. How often Liverpool were offside was really fascinating to witness. The discipline. Wirtz, by the way, we've got to talk about him. He looked like a child for much of this game, talking about under-8 football. One of my Liverpool supporting fans, Shalisa Castrodale, texted me, said, I think Liverpool paid $1 million each time Wirtz has given the ball away in this game. The record is hard to say. 10 appearances in the league, 0 goals, 0 assists. This was at a time where the entire Liverpool team did not mount so much as a shot on goal in that first half. I guess the question is, can you rebuild your team around a player who is so clearly playing in anguish right now?
Yeah, Gary Neville said either on TV or on one of his many podcasts over here that Wirtz looks like he's trying too hard. And I think that's probably right, that he's so desperate to make an impression that he's buzzing around to no general purpose. He's a difficult player to judge because to watch him, especially in the flesh, but I think on TV as well, you can see what a wonderful footballer he is.
Can you?
Yeah, certainly in the stadium, he is very obviously technically brilliant, bright, inventive, incredibly hard-working for a playmaker. You know, there's so much there. Someone previously involved with Liverpool told me in the summer that when they signed him, you know, they spent that money because he was all things to all men. He is kind of the perfect paradigm of a modern playmaker. But I think
it can be raw. But I remember when Thiago first played for Liverpool, we were similarly so ecstatically hyped. I remember the commentator in that first game just was marvelling. He goes, "Oh, the ball just sounds different when he hits it." In the Premier League, we often have to give new players coming into the league almost a wild card, a free pass. The Thierry Henry need the Didier Drogba need a season to bed in. But when you're almost bedding your whole team's transformation around that one player, does it hold?
I think it's not just that, Rog. I think it's that when you pay that much money for a player of that talent from a league that is not physically dissimilar to the Premier League, that, you know, a lot of the kind of idea around Wirtz here certainly is that he can't cope with the physicality of the Premier League. He's not come from, you know, the Wharfdale under-7s league. He's come from the Bundesliga. That is also intensely physical. Are the players in the Premier League stronger than they are in Germany? I think they're probably not, to be perfectly honest. They'll be very similar. I think that price, his experience, his status, you have a right to expect him to do something in a game. And that's what really struck me against City, was that I think if you watch Wirtz, similar to Thiago, it's really obvious straight away that he's an incredibly good footballer. And I remember watching Thiago, and occasionally Thiago would produce a performance that took your breath away. And what did for Thiago was injury, effectively. And that's fine, that happens, it's sad. Wirtz is not injured. He just doesn't affect games at all. And I think that, given the amount they've paid for him, given the role he's been given in the team, given the way that Slot has structured the side around him, it doesn't matter that he's a lovely player to watch. It doesn't make a difference that he's aesthetically very pleasing. It doesn't really make a difference that he works incredibly hard, to be perfectly honest. You're buying someone to make a difference in games, and there has not been a single game this season, certainly in the Premier League, and I think maybe even in the Champions League. He's been better in the Champions League, but not game-defining. He has not dominated a single game. Florian Wirtz does not take games by the scruff of the neck and decide them, which is what you expect a player who costs that much money to do. And I do worry a little bit that it's not that he needs a transition season to get used to the physicality of the Premier League, or that he needs to get used to his teammates. The fact that Liverpool are bedding a whole team in doesn't help. I worry that he's the sort of player who looks really, really good and excels and thrives in a system. And if the system is not working, Wirtz is not effective.
Oh God, that is a dark note to end on, because you talk about players who can take a game by the scruff of the neck. Second half, it was Szoboszlai started playing a more advanced role, gave Liverpool a foothold higher up the field. They brought on Gakpo, who was hungry, blew a chance over the bar, almost like an Everton striker. You had Nico O'Reilly smothering Mo Salah. Liverpool couldn't live, though, with Jeremy Doku. I mean, just just an interstellar level of performance from the very opening. I mean, this is a player who's always had flair. He's always had flourish. He's been accused of having very little by the way of end product, like a luxury player. But this season, there's been an intentionality about his play, a focus, a self-understanding almost, Raw. And in this game, he was utterly unplayable. When he took possession on the ball, and you knew what he was going to do with it before he even took that first touch, he just dropped his shoulder, fast feet, created separation again from Sad Kanate. It was just a poem of a strike. That transformation, how do you understand it? And is it permanent?
It's difficult to say on the permanent thing. It is interesting. Doku was brilliant against Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League as well, 4 days earlier. And it did feel as though one of the narratives that emerged from City beating Liverpool was Jeremy Doku's, the new star, they've unearthed another one. I'm not sure whether that holds up over the course of the whole season so far. He does seem to have unlocked another level to his performance. The test now, I guess, is sustaining it. And as much as he is when he played like as he did yesterday, and when he plays as he did against Dortmund, you can see exactly why he's been considered so exciting for so long. There is no way of knowing whether he will sustain it. We will ultimately find out whether that's the case. But what it looks like already is kind of proof that Guardiola, 1,000 games into management, has still got it. That he has taken this player who's always had incredible raw talent and shaped him into something devastating. And if Doku can maintain it, then it may well be that in 6 months' time, 7 months' time, we are talking, largely about a team defined by Haaland and about Gianluigi Donnarumma's signing and all that stuff. But Doku will be the great coaching triumph of the season, because yet again, Pep Guardiola seems to have found someone with ample ability and maybe a little bit of a lack of direction, and given them the tools to harness all of their promise into something that makes an impact.
Giving him his own instruction manual in a way, and that self-awareness is what is unlocking, or can unlock. And by the way, when you're like, I don't know, can it be sustained? Don't give me rationality, give me hot takes, Raw. Just completely and utterly hyperbolicized. Let's go over the top. Because this performance was worthy of it. 3-0. In truth, City paddled Liverpool, swatted them aside with ease on this day. This was Arne Slot's heaviest defeat in the Premier League. 7 losses now in 10 games. Goals hard to come by, conceding in bunches suddenly. I don't think they had a shot on goal until the 76th minute. Really bedraggled in that Manchester reign. 6 wins, 5 losses, all or nothing on this season. And this one hurts because we thought they'd found the equation, stripping back the first team, dropping the newcomers, going back to what had delivered glory. Now they have to work out how to reset, find the momentum now, Raw. It's going to be a very long international break for Arne Slot. And the question I've got for you, is this the real Liverpool, Raw? Is the one we saw against Aston Villa and then against Real Madrid, is that actually the outlier?
I think at the moment, Rog, you have to say that it is. That they were genuinely excellent against Real Madrid, and Real Madrid are top of La Liga. They drew with Rayo Vallecano over the weekend, but they are still top of La Liga. They're still Real Madrid. They've still got all that talent. And Liverpool overpowered them. They produced all of the things you would have expected from Liverpool last season in that game, but they've done nothing of the sort for nearly 2 months. There has been no sign of a performance like that. Maybe Eintracht Frankfurt a little bit, but even that was a little bit more slapdash, a little bit more chaotic. Liverpool's fixtures after the international break look relatively kind. They've got Nottingham Forest at home, West Ham away. He says this with the familiarity of a man who's looked at this a lot. Sunderland at home, which is not easy, but again, it's a home game at Anfield.
They don't know what to do without the garbage blowing around them, do they?
And then Leeds away, I think. And you'd look at those normally and think that those are 4 games for Arne Slot to bed in the system, to get a bit of momentum back, get a bit of confidence going. Isak fit again, maybe Alisson fit again. This should be the chance for Liverpool to reset. But the way Liverpool have played over the last 2 months, I don't think there's any reason to believe that they win any of those games, let alone all of them. There's no sign of a plan. Arne Slot's become very, very good at identifying after a game what the problem was, but no ability to stop it happening. And no sign, actually, even more worrying, really, that he's seen the issues coming. So he mentioned after the City game that they weren't prepared for the way that City swarmed players in the middle of the pitch. That's what Manchester City do. That's what they've been doing all season. Why were you not prepared for it? I saw a friend of mine at the Anfield Wrap saying that Liverpool looked badly coached. I think that's true. I think the chopping and changing between last season's idea and the new, whatever he wants them to be, has cost them not only rhythm, but confidence and confidence in him. And I don't see how that you get any of that stuff back quickly. You might be able to rebuild it piecemeal over time, but what you lose in that time is anything. It's the title. I think is gone. Obviously,
you do. Where Andy Robertson said that. I mean, by the way, Wayne Rooney would have loved this game, and I kept thinking, Wayne, just like, that's an 8. I was an 8. But you're not on camera. You're not on the mic. You're not by Big Verge. You can't get your laugh in, Wayne. Andy Robertson said that post game, Liverpool have, quote, a huge uphill battle to defend the title. That's the emotional conversation. Rationally, I mean, I was going to ask you kindly, but you've just gone there. It's the focus now, Champions League football. The title's gone. Yeah,
the title's gone completely. There's no point thinking about the title. I mean, I can see why Robertson would say that, and mathematically, obviously, the season is long, and it's 8 points. It's not unheard of to close 8 points. But the way they're playing, it's not the results they've had. And to be honest, to put my fan hat on, to take off my neutral
I've never noticed a difference.
Put my pure fan hat on.
Is the fan hat one of those baseball caps with a propeller on top, or is the fan hat the one with the two beer cans either side and the little plate going in? It's a gigantic tinfoil helmet, Rog. I thought going into the City game, because Arsenal had drawn, I thought, do you know what? Whatever happens here, it doesn't really matter, because I got myself used to the idea that Liverpool would be 10 points behind Arsenal going into the international break. And because Arsenal drew at Sunderland, that lead could only be 8. And so I thought, look, go to City. If you lose at City but you go down fighting, it's fine. Lose 2-1 to Manchester City. Give them a good game, but lose 2-1. That's okay. The meekness and the lack of organisation of the performance I found really troubling, and a particular kick in the teeth because of what had happened on Tuesday night against Real Madrid. And it looked like they'd found something, but that turned out to be a mirage. And the one thing we've not mentioned here, Rog, is obviously the context of Liverpool's broader season, which is that we're not sure how the players are reacting to the grief that they are still feeling. And that continues to be a relevant factor. But it doesn't actually explain tactical shortcomings. It doesn't explain why they are unable to see how a team is going to try and beat them. Those are the basic tenets of the job. And if they're not doing that, I'm not sure you can say they're struggling emotionally. Also, if they are struggling emotionally on an individual level, then the club has a duty of care to remove them from the pitch for a little bit, maybe only for a week or two, to give them a chance to kind of just take a breath, take a pause, because it's an ongoing situation. But it looks to me an awful lot like there's some very hard decisions that need to be made at Liverpool. There's some very difficult calls that need to be made, and they require a degree of ruthlessness at this stage. From the City perspective, a delirious day. Again, Liverpool had the upper hand in this really the past 3-4 seasons, and the fans got to entertain themselves by singing "You're Getting Sacked" in the morning to a quite stupefied Arne Slot. It was magnificent for them. Capped off with the final whistle, ecstasy for Pep Guardiola. Win number, is it 716? Throttling a bedraggled Liverpool in his 1000th game. You couldn't get a better experience than that. And you can tell how proud he was as he walked around after the final whistle. But you could also, going back to that obsessive nature, even in this moment, the crowd singing his name, it's all about him and the final whistle. Couldn't stop. Broke it, from the accolades, the claps, to stop, to coach up Savinho in a very serious way. Foden couldn't help himself. You kind of saw in that moment, this is a man who suddenly believes there's a bigger celebration to be had this season. It is City are beginning to hum, and they're true title challengers.
Yeah, I think I've said before that the signing of Donnarumma really reminded me of Manchester United signing Robin van Persie from Arsenal all those years ago. It felt very much like a win now sort of signing. Let's not have any fancy talk of philosophies or ideas. Get me a gigantic Italian goalkeeper to go with my gigantic Norwegian striker, and we will win either the Premier League or the Champions League, or maybe both. They do look like they've found a rhythm. They look like they're in gear. There was a real kind of swagger and assuredness about their performance against Liverpool, which is really important. And yeah, combined with Arsenal dropping points, all of a sudden it's 4 points. And Manchester City, who have, let's not forget, won 6 of the previous 8 championships, are breathing down your necks. That's not a comfortable place to be.
From one side of Manchester to the other, Tottenham 2, Manchester United 2. Spurs who were booed off last weekend at home after conjuring just 0.05 XG. Friction between star player and manager. Star player then goes full on Maradona 1986 on Copenhagen's asses. Destroys the whole side. We wondered which side would come in to face United. A team Spurs, yes, had beaten 4 times last season, including that Ange Viking funeral pyre that was the Europa League final. A United now, though, unbeaten in 4, still proving themselves to themselves. And you had Thomas Frank picking 2 out-of-form strikers, Kalu Muani and poor Richarlison. Ruben went strikerless, so no surprise the opening exchanges were blunt. In fact, Spurs strikers barely bloody touched the ball. And the first goal came, Spurs struggling to build out the back. United ultimately arced in a lethal cross. And Bumo, this was a fantastic goal. The way he almost knew what he was going to do before the ball even started to fly towards him. His confidence in his technique as he rose up, his shiny bald head just in the London smog, glinting as he caressed it home. Raw, is there a team with a bigger XG in haircuts right now than United? That fan with the uncuttable hair representing the supporters, and the gent leading the transformation of the side, and Bumo, he's a bald sex god. If I was a United fan and I had hair, 2 massive ifs, I would just shave my hair off, become bald by choice like Mbumo right now.
Yeah, him and Cunha have become real standard bearers, haven't they, for kind of the new green shoots of Manchester United, the idea that United are finally a club starting to go somewhere. And I think, I'm not going to claim to be wise after the event with Cunha, because I was a bit unsure about Cunha, but I think Mbumo, you could see straight away, was going to be... You'd seen what he'd done at Brentford. It looked like his skill set was really easily transferable to a higher level. And he's slotted in seamlessly. He wanted Manchester United. That alone should be kind of commendation enough that he wanted to sign for Manchester United so much he signed for this Manchester United. But he's really kind of become a bit of a spiritual leader, I think.
I think that's true. Ruben Amorim came on our show last week. You can find it Thursday on our YouTube. Talked about how Cunha and Mbumo, as well as the goals, the play and all that stuff, he talked about how their hunger, their mentality has changed the entire team. I found this fascinating moment. I had no idea whether there is or no rule. As Mbumo scored on Thomas Frank, his manager at Brentford. Can you celebrate when you score against your old manager? Turns out you can, Rule.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's a risk that football's getting to the stage where you're not allowed to celebrate at all because you might offend somebody. I feel like that would be a problem, Rog. You can definitely celebrate if you score against the team containing someone you used to work with.
Yeah, that'd be just amazing.
It's fine.
If you gave that... Football's just going to be reduced to no celebrations, just the booing. And I think, by the way, it could be all the better for it. By the way, talking about booing, Spurs fans got their boos ready at half-time. Second half, Erdebird came on for the very lost Muani, gave Spurs more brain. Thomas Frank, though, still probably the most shocked man in the stadium when his blunt team came alive late. 84th minute, substitute young Tell. Whenever I see him, I always think about Chris Berman. He'd call him continent. I think he'd call him Kissand, or however he speaks. But he span in the box, Tell, and unleashed a shot, heavy deflection. But God bless, as Thomas Frank, quoting Michael Scott, quoting Wayne Gretzky, quoting Kiss and Tell, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Suddenly, United in bits. They've got this crazy habit of actually conceding 2 goals in bunches. Shesko on as Serb limped off after being shut down on a one-on-one, poor kid. So down to 10 men, really listing. United, by the way, 1 minute you're hanging on to second place, but then 91st minute, corner half cleared. Odegaard lashed one in, and Richarlison, unmarked, instinctually flicked it on with his head. Q, utter bloody raptures. It's been so long for him since he's been the hero. The fans delirious, shocked and delirious. You saw shots of them just flicking the V's at the United fans who seconds earlier were dreaming of the lofty heights of second. It was astonishing, Raw. It was unbelievable. I felt terrible in the moment for all those Spurs fans who come to the stadium just to boot.
Yeah, it's disappointing. It's really frustrating when things that you're expecting to happen don't come true. So lots of Spurs fans had gone just to boo, and they were denied the chance to boo at full time as well as half time. Sometimes you can plan perfectly and things don't work, because that is the ideal marking strategy for Richarlison. He is not going to score. Leave him unattended. It's fine. They weren't marking Vicario because he was standing in his own goal and not going to score. Similar to Richarlison. And then, wouldn't you know it, he sticks out his leg, possibly by accident, and scores a goal. United had every reason to feel hard done by. The man who doesn't score goals scoring a goal. You can't legislate for stuff like that, Roger. It's not possible.
Yeah, Richarlison, he's essentially become a bit like Ben Simmons, who you just never have to put a player on because you just know he's never going to score, especially not from a three. Is that your theory? Poor guy has been struggling so hard this season. You know, Tottenham, all the chatter about bringing Ivan Toney back, bringing any scorer who could score. In that moment, ran off, ripped his shirt off. He just scored the winner in his mind. Sobbed on the field. Sobbed. Probably thinking just how close he was to being loaned back to Everton, right, Ro?
Does kind of make you think if there's a point where you maybe we all just need to hold our horses a little bit and remember that the final whistle has not blown until the final whistle has blown. So you don't want to be caught crying on the pitch when there's still a game to play.
It's an incredible true statistic, preceding disastrous events. From Statman Dave, Tottenham are winless in every game when Richarlison takes off his shirt. I think he's done it twice now, thinking he'd scored the winner, only for Spurs to concede. AKA never take your shirt off too early, and so it came to pass. United's second week on the run. They've not played great, but they have played tenaciously. This is under scrutiny. Their new essence is to respond. 2 weeks on the run, 96 minute this time, off a corner. Matthias de Ligt went full on Harry Maguire cover band, headed finish. United fans who'd been taunted by Spurs seconds earlier, suddenly they were the ones doing the gloating. It is remarkable. I asked Amorim in that interview what the true pleasure of football is. You actually told me to ask this question, Roy. I asked him, what is the true pleasure of football? His answer was simple: winning. He said winning is the best feeling in the world. That header, watching it sneak inside the post, must have felt the closest to a non-win win.
Drawing is the best feeling in football, Rog. Everyone knows that. Yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it? Because both teams... I don't know how you'd feel emotionally in that situation. United will feel relief and delight, I guess, but also a little bit like they've got away with one. Spurs will feel robbed and furious, but also quite happy because a
point at home, a big boy point at home.
No, but also like the dopamine hit of scoring those 2 goals and seeing your team turn around from 1-0 down in the 83rd minute to 2-1 up in the 95th minute. That dopamine is still in your system. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't just go away. It would have left a lot of people sort of walking the streets of North London very confused, Rog. That's my main sense of that game.
You saw at the final whistle, both managers looked absolutely shattered and quietly devastated, but both relieved because neither of them would spend the international break, getting absolutely ripped by the media. And this game, more than anything, just showed the Pretenders used to sing the song about how there's a thin line between love and hate. There's an even thinner line between glory and doom in the Premier League. And at the end of the day, Raw, who was this more important to? Both sets of fans got the joy of flicking 2 fingers up and down at each other in ecstasy, which, by the way, is why we're watching in the first place. United, 6 minutes from victory, threw it away, but bright side, first time in 5 games undefeated. And I'm not mocking Spurs. A point at home is a massive thing. Ruben Amorim, quite fascinatingly, supplied the counter-narrative. He always briefs against himself. We have a lot of problems. I know people see results and think we're improving. We're not. I love him. Spurs, though, been without Dominic Solanke, James Maddison, Kulusevski for most of the season. They've lost Bergvall, Mohamed Kudus last weekend, and still able to grind something out. There's a great comment in our Discord from @T Cook. My sense is if you'd offered any Spurs fan last spring that they could have the Europa Trophy, Thomas Frank can be sitting within touching distance of the top 4 after 11 games, they'd have given you a kidney to make it happen. And yet all of us talk about the team in ways that read like Sylvia Plath. That's just modern football, isn't it, Ro?
They've got the Europa League trophy, a hugely talented manager, and they are in the thick of the race for the Champions League. Boo.
Talking about boo, the agony of my sporting weekend. Aston Villa 4, Bournemouth 0. A game that was thrilling in prospect, ultimately turned into Bass manager on Bass manager violence. Bournemouth, we want to see how they rebound to just their second loss of the season to Haaland and Manchester City. They could have gone second if they had a win. The game itself, to me, was actually undermined early on. A hideous head-to-head collision between Tyler Adams and his teammate Adam Smith. Really hard to rebound from that kind of a thing emotionally, especially for a team that love to have a fast start. there were 2 free kicks then from almost identical positions. Bournemouth had Tavernier step up and he blasted it into Rosie. But then Buendia took Villa's. I actually knew he was going to. I wrote in the Discord, the Men in Blazers Discord, I said, this is going to be a goal. The way he caressed it, Raw, with the touch of a tender love. It was a game that was like Exhibit A for elite football. It's all about making the very complex look very simple.
Yeah, and making the most of your opportunities. Just the lead itself is so finely balanced. There isn't much between Villa and Bournemouth, to be honest, in terms of the different styles, but in terms of like quality and ability to win games and all that stuff, they're very evenly matched. You have to make the most of your opportunities, and that's what Villa did. Buendia himself is quite a nice story, though. Does it look like Villa had moved beyond him at least once, if not like 3 times? But because of their, to an extent, self-inflicted financial problems, he has been able to kind of reclaim a place, and that's nice to see his kind of re-emergence as a talent.
And he really drove Villa forward. They seized the initiative, total control, pressed Bournemouth into mistakes, and then pounced. Second goal by Amadou Onana, another one of the weekend where the crowd shouted "shoot," which he did. First goal of the season. He ran off to the sideline, celebrated with the joy of a kid on the schoolyard, just crowning himself, which I adored. Amadou Onana, the one Royal I'm prepared to believe in. There was an Anton Semenyo penalty miss. Oh, God, you come on our show for an interview. Curse of Rog. Fine save, to be candid, by Emi Martinez. An incredible move by Unai Emery. Most managers would try and close the game down. He pushed on more attacking pieces. Ross Barkley, Sancho, Tielemans, and he let them feast. All contributed to the 2 goals that blew the game open late on. It was a devastating loss for Bournemouth. A team who have had the mindset where they could beat anyone. That was not on display yesterday. 7 goals leaked in 2 weeks for Iraola to now mull over. This is amazing, Raw. He's faced Unai Emery 7 times. He's now lost 5, drawn 2, never won. How does that work, Raw? Do you believe one manager can always have an almost Shakespearean mastery over another?
Not in every case, but I think with someone like Iraola, it is possible because you kind of know what his teams are going to do. There are threads that join Bournemouth with Rayo Vallecano. There are certain moves that he will prefer that Emery will be able to identify and possibly negate. I don't think that will hold forever. At some point, Andoni Iraola will beat Aston Villa. But Emery has it as well. Crystal Palace always smash Aston Villa. I don't understand what it is, but Crystal Palace, every time they play Villa, destroy them. There's obviously just something about the balance of the way the managers play or the way the team's set up, something that swings it decisively in one direction. I suppose with a more pragmatic, more adaptable manager, maybe not possible if you don't know what someone's going to do. But with Iraola, yeah, it is possible that Emery just kind of has an answer to whatever he wants.
Maybe because they're both speaking in the Basque language, so he actually understands it. It was actually an odd delight at this game, hearing 2 Basques shouting the whole game. So, "Good Scott, good move, Scott, come on, Ollie Watkins." It was just a beautiful, beautiful soundtrack to the game. They're both incredible human beings, as is Tyler Adams, who will join me this week to talk about the change in mentality at Bournemouth this season after last season's odyssey. That will drop this upcoming Thursday. Oh, to Chelsea. Incredible. More booing. 3, Wolves 0. Poor Wolves, bedraggled, tattered, doomed, most crucially bereft of anything resembling fight, as Chelsea worked out belatedly how to absolutely hammer them. Wolves have ex-Luton, turned Middlesbrough handsome young manager Rob Edwards, who has somehow been persuaded to leave his championship challenger Middlesbrough to take on the relegation scrap at his local club Wolves, where he once played and coached and still lives close to. But man, I hope he wasn't watching this game, which was over the moment Maresca pulled a well-intentioned but wildly uncalibrated Liam Delap. Rarely has a player screamed more January loan to Everton, and replaced him with young sparkler Estevao. Wolves could not handle really anything. The energy, the 3-dimensionality that he brought on with him surged onto the field, and utterly just the defence collapsed. Alejandro Garnacho got 2 assists in the game for the first time. Chelsea, Raw, they are so bloody fascinating. If we did an emotional table, the way fans essentially feel about their team, they'd be bottom half, probably lower for sure. Just the fume, the distrust, the disbelief in Enzo Maresca and his squad management, his constant rotation, his substitutes, his lack of coherence. 93 changes to the starting lineup this season, by far the most. His squad is like bigger than the ocean and the stars. He's definitely a shuffler. But no one else has had a Club World Cup campaign to shatter their players before the season even began. The team are in third, Raw. They are in third. I would bite your arm off. I go on the record. They're 6 points back from Arsenal. Is that good? It's so good. So how do you understand the dislocation between reality, performances and the table, and just the emotional angst which Maresca just can never bloody shake? For a man who knows nothing, who subs badly, who can't work out his best 11, his team are doing bloody well.
Yeah, and as you say, in light of the Club World Cup, it's an incredible achievement, given the injury problems they've got, given how fatigued that whole side must be. You do worry whether that might catch up with them to an even greater extent later on in the season. But there's no question that Maresca has made the most of the hand that he has been dealt. And the fury, I guess, from Chelsea fans, it seems partly to be that there's not really an emotional bond with Maresca, and I don't know why that would be. But they just don't seem to have taken to him. That does happen. There's a little bit, I think, of the amount of churn at the club makes it very difficult for the fans to kind of latch on to anybody in particular. That's maybe not that healthy. And then you hear complaints about the style of football, just as you did at Leicester when Maresca got them promoted. There were Leicester fans who did not take to his football. And the three things, all wrapped up in a bow, I suppose, have made him a kind of begrudging presence. Like, they're third and he's doing well, but I suppose he's doing all right, is kind of the general vibe at Chelsea. And that is odd, because what he's done is really quite remarkably successful given the circumstances.
Club World Cup. Yeah, but Chelsea fans, drop us a line, meninblazers@gmail.com. We'd love to know really what you're feeling in that emotional, rational discrepancy. Talking about discrepancies, Brentford 3, Newcastle 1. 2 open the score in this one too. Harvey Barnes, fantastic goal, like a hand grenade with his pin out, total misdirection. Brentford ran rampant. Igor Thiago scoring twice. He's the latest heir to Brentford's elite striker crown. They are a factory. Ollie Watkins begat Ivan Toney, begat Brian Mbeumo and Johan Wissa. They're gone. But now they've got Igor Thiago, 8 goals this season, the most by any human being not named Erling. We were told rookie manager Keith Andrew would be a disaster. He's got Brentford 12th ahead of Newcastle. They've beaten Manchester United, Villa, Liverpool at home, now Newcastle too. The Brentford fans got to sing "Are You Watching Johan Wissa?" which must have been an utter delight. The tune. Winless, this is incredible. Last 9 Premier League away games, 9 points dropped from leading positions to first in the league in that quite unwanted category. 2 points off the relegation zone. All those Nick Voltemade good vibes burnt off. Real concern for Eddie Howe. We were told all that Saudi money, richest owners in the world trademark, would transform them into a smiting powerhouse. Instead, Sunderland, their neighbours, have surged. The Tuna are really dead squibbing.
Yeah, they seem to be trapped in a sort of stasis. Their performances aren't that bad. And if you look through the team, and in fact the squad, it's really hard to explain, because they've got probably the best midfield in the league. Certainly the most physical, the most intense. They've got a squad that is much better equipped than it was 2 years ago to compete in Europe and in the Premier League. And yet their performances have been so kind of lethargic. And whether the Alexander Isak deal has cursed everyone involved in it, maybe that's what's happened. But more broadly, there is definitely, I think there is a question mark, and it's one that Newcastle fans are starting to ask more and more about just how committed the Saudi ownership is to the club, because there hasn't been a huge amount of evidence for it. And a lot of that's been blamed on PSR, on the hated rules that prevent Newcastle spending. They've actually spent quite a lot of money, and all the stuff they're allowed to do, rebuilding the training ground, they haven't done. There's a lot of stasis at Newcastle, and for the first time since in the 4 years since the takeover, I guess, there are signs that those questions aren't coming from journalists who get accused of wanting Newcastle to fail for reasons that are never actually explained. They're coming from the fans themselves.
In other games, Crystal Palace 0, Brighton 0, the Premier League's most heartfelt, non-geographically based rivalry. Crystal Palace and Brighton fans both hate each other for really a confluence of historical slights way back in the 70s that no one can really cohere, but my God, everybody feels. First meeting of the two clubs since Palace won the FA Cup. A lot of edge before the game, heavy old school policing. Football, reflection maybe of Palace's quite hectic, packed schedule, catching up with the minds and the legs of their players. Brighton Brighton were not able to take advantage. I'll say get well soon, Mott Gahey. Palace's sword and shield suffered a quite bad foot injury in the Conference League win midweek. Palace fans, though, enjoyed watching his long-term replacement, they hope, 19-year-old French kid, Jady Camvor, who filled in with a flourish. Less of a flourish. Nottingham Forest 3, Leeds 1 first. 3 points for Sean Dyche back in his third time of asking. Forest's first Premier League win in a giant 10 matches, moves them within 1 point of safety. Another opening goal of misdirection, this one assisted by Brendan Aronson for Leeds, but within 135 seconds, Forest back in it. This was really watching two blunt, low-confidence teams go at it from that point. And I'd say the organisation Dyche has brought, it really was the difference here. Omari Hutchison's introduction changed the game. Forest surged late. Leeds fans now have to mull once again over whether their manager Daniel Farke is really championship calibre and will drag his team down to that level. But Raw, enormous win for Dyche. It is so tight in the bottom of the table. The whole table is tight. It feels like almost everybody's on bloody 18 points. Going into the international break now, all those gravel voice, good vibes, and checks notes Liverpool at Anfield when the Premier League returned into our loving arms. That was a huge result, really, that can't be overstated in significance in the reality of that relegation battle.
Yeah, 2 wins in a row. It's going to be great. This one and the one at Anfield. The international break's kind of weird, isn't it? Does it? For some teams, it comes at a really bad time, and for others, it's really helpful, and it can be helpful for positive reasons and negative reasons. I think for Dyche, going into the international break with that feeling of we have just beaten a relegation rival, we've done it relatively sort of easily, smoothly, that will fill the team with confidence. And without wanting to be too negative, Rog, I think he'll look at Anfield and think, do you know what, this is quite a good game for us, not just stylistically, but because it's a bit of a free hit. So if you lose at Anfield and you're Forest, that's fine. You weren't expected to win anyway. But if you get something, that's a massive bonus.
Oh, Roy, you're turning into me, speaking out your worst outcomes to try and defend yourself from their emotional pain. West Ham 3, Burnley 2, 18th place hosting 17th in the Claret and Blue Classico. And a West Ham game which began in the now standard way with their suffering fans marching a coffin and a hearse through the streets near the stadium to protest their ownership. They had a banner that said 15 years of denying West Ham United, which is just true. I mean, it's so bloody emotionally powerful. But despite the discontent with the front office on the field, Nuno quietly giving West Ham life. Pretty dire, got to be candid. A goalfest born of slop and meagre gruel of action. Two goalkeepers just handing out chances to the opposition as if they were kombucha samples at your local Whole Foods. Highlight, perhaps the secret joy of witnessing Kyle Walker and Kyle Walker-Peters on the field at the same time. Raw. In the end, the Bubble Brigade earned their second straight win, meaning they've taken more points in the last 6 days than in the previous 10 weeks. Is this how it is now for West Ham fans under Nuno for the rest of the season? It's just grim, pragmatic, kind of Suchecking their way to the points. Is that what passes as glory?
That will have to pass as glory for this season. But I think what those two games, actually Forest and West Ham, what they really indicate is that they are obviously both in the bottom three. They are two sides who've had dreadful starts to the season, but they do have a lot of quality. They've got far more quality than they've shown so far this season, certainly. And they have enough quality that I think if I was Leeds or Burnley, I'd be worried by them getting their act together. You know, you've got a team in West Ham who have very little to recommend them, but have a playmaker of the quality of Lucas Paquetá. That's not a great thing to have coming up on the rails behind you.
And finally, wow, did this really happen? Everton Football Club 2, Fulham 0. Stand a bit taller after this one. Look, I mean, we are lacking a striker. That is a human agony right now. We got Beto, whom I love. We got young Raw Tierno Barry. It's a conundrum. Raw, you're a football man with no compassion. If you had to choose one out of, stay with me here, Barry Diller, Barry Manilow, or Tierno Barry to start up front, who are you choosing?
I don't know who Barry Diller is, Rog. This is one of your American references that goes completely over my head. Who would I choose out of Barry Cryer to respond with a Yorkshire reference?
Yeah, that's like an old kind of 1970s British television talk show staple.
A beloved comedian, just with an asterisk that I'm not sure whether he's problematic.
We got a lot of Barry Cryers.
There's a lot of Barry Cryers
at Everton. Go on.
You've
got to go Manilow, right?
Tierno Barry has not done a huge amount to prove that he should keep Manilow out of the team, Rog, to be honest. But
he can hear Manilow in training.
But he did enough for Villarreal to be worth persevering with. We talked about Jeremy Doku this episode, haven't we, this week?
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to coach players to make them a bit better. Give them time, give them space.
He's so young.
Give them their own instruction manuals.
It's so unbelievably cruel. We had David Moyes on stage in New York City, and they just signed Barry. And I asked on stage, expecting that he'd be like, "Yeah, he's a great kid. He's going to change things on the field." Moyes, if you listen back to that, he said, "Yeah, we paid like 27 million. You don't get much for 27 million. He's a raw prospect." That's what he is. And by the way, Barry's just a kid, and he tried so hard in this game. Gave his all. He's actually become a cult hero at Everton, despite not scoring, because he's so emotionally articulate post games. His posts where he talks about his relationship with the crowd, how they lift him, what they bring to him, what he dreams of, what he yearns for. It's really, he's a beautiful human being, and God bless, I hope the goals come. But there's a symbol of the good vibe there in him. But also underlying the good vibe, there's a true moment of challenge ahead of this one. We'd won just one in our last 7, despite the Hill Dickinson good vibe. And we had to battle Fulham, who always seem to do us. Ghost of Christmas Past under Marco Silva. Alex Iwobi lives to do us, torments us. I think we'd won just once in our last 8 against Fulham. We pressed with venom. We had 3 goals chalked off for offside. We finally scored a big one. And when you can't get goals from your strikers, it's good to have such a potent defensive midfielder. Idrissa Gana Gueye slapped home. Michael Keane got another one off his shoulder. God bless him, just like he did in training. Who needs strikers, I guess? That's what we're the living proof of right now, Ro.
You're finding a way, and that is what Moyes does. I've got to say, Roger, I thought what was more interesting about this game than Everton, who are doing what Everton were always going to do this season, which is finish 13th and not score many goals. Would you be a bit worried if you were Fulham?
5 defeats in 6 games. I think
I might. I mean, obviously the bottom 3 of Wolves, Forest, and West Ham are 3 established Premier League teams. Forest a little bit less so than the other 2, I suppose. We've been looking at them and thinking if they get their form together, which Forest and West Ham seem to be, then it's Leeds, it's Burnley. Probably not Sunderland anymore. Those are the teams that they might catch. But Fulham look like they're drifting. And drifting in the Premier League is really dangerous.
The lack of fight, I will say, that they showed was staggering. And there's a sense, speaking to Fulham fans, people who watch them week in, week out, Marco Silva constantly tipped to be moving to a bigger club. That wears on you, and it's almost like he's become dislocated from the project he's leaving in the present by that constant rumination about his future. God bless, they were truly terrible here. They made us look solid. I don't know, Michael Keane, but the one thing I've got, how is there not a song for Keano when he rose up and dunked the ball in off his shoulder, God bless him, like a dime store Harry Maguire? How is there not like the Bonnie Tyler's I Need a Hero, just like I need a Keano. I need a Keano! I need a Keano till the end of the night. Get it going. I don't know how to start these songs from 3,000 miles away, but I need a Keano till the end of the night.
Are we aware of the best song of the season, Rog? Has that crossed your path?
Tell the world this. By the way, you've already given us the best movie as Independence Day, so my expectations are a little low.
This one is. I would recommend that anyone seek out
about Hearts.
The Hearts song for Claudio Braga is absolutely magnificent. It's one of those where I think if there's a team who have a player whose name scans into the song Radio Gaga, you're about to hear an awful lot of copycat versions. That is my tip. My cultural tip for the week, Rog. Find the Heart song for Claudio Braga. It's to the tune of Radio Gaga by Queen, the 1970s British rock band. And it's refrain...
People know who Queen is, Ro.
It's refrain... I don't know. You don't know what chocolate oranges are. I don't know what these people are dealing with. I don't know their limitations. The refrain is, all we need is Claudio Braga. Claudio Braga.
Yeah.
Claudio Braga, but it's got a full. It's fully lyricked up. It's fully done. It's in real detail.
It's the depth of the lyric.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, it's not up there with "I need a Keno. I need a Keno." Oh my God, I'm holding out for a Keno till the end of the night. It's gorgeous, and after what that man has suffered in a Harry Maguire-esque way, never said a bad word about you, Michael Keane. he deserves it, man. He deserves it. By the way, I had no idea how much players love those moments. Jordan Pickford, when I asked him what it feels like to hear your song sung by the former Gladys, he went off on that for so long. As a football fan in Sunderland, singing the songs myself, I know what it's beautiful. Make it happen. I need a Keno. Really important win. Manchester United up next. But here's the statistic, Raw. Everton Football Club remain undefeated at the Hill Dickinson when I'm not there.
That's all you need to know. That's all you need to know.
Jonah and the wheel, baby. Let's finish with a letter from our mailbag from Susan Keith from Oregon. Raw, do the honours.
Rog and Rory. I read a piece in The Guardian about the deluge of young players in the Premier League this season. Max Dowman, who's like 13, 15, maybe 16 now. But yes, point taken. Rio at Liverpool, Josh King at Fulham, Estevao and more. I'm 20 and they make me feel old. Do you remember the moment you were both older than the footballers who were playing? Was it like an early midlife crisis?
Oh my God. By the way, Max Dowman is the ultimate what did I do wrong with my life player. When he came on in the Champions League, 15 years and 300 days, Raw, and I'm still waiting for my call up here. It was genuinely, that was probably the moment this midweek when I thought maybe it's not going to happen. Maybe it's not going to happen for me. But there are now, what was that snort, Raw? That snort came from a place deep in. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, it's the fact we all have that. So I did a TV thing this week with, or last week, with Joe Hart and Asmir Begovic, who have both retired. Oh no, in fact, Begovic is still playing at Leicester, but Joe Hart's retired. And I think of Joe Hart as being veteran player. He won't thank me for saying this, but you kind of, by the time players reach that stage of their career, you'll be like, well, they're kind of yesterday's news. They're kind of old man Hart playing in goal for whoever. Joe Hart is 5 years younger than me. And I was a bit like, this is too much. But the moment I remember thinking footballers are too young now was when David Moyes, looking like a fresh-faced, granite-hewn, up-and-coming young manager, unleashed a large child onto the pitch at Goodison Park. And that large child promptly scored from 30 yards against Arsenal. And Wayne Rooney was 16 at that stage.
I'll tell you how old he was. He was 16 years, 9 months, 24 days.
And I was 20. And it was very much like, hang on, he doesn't get to be that young. No, that's not allowed. Footballers were older than me.
That's so true.
And Rooney was so dramatically younger than me. I wonder if it happens a lot at like Susan's age now, where the players who are the hot young things are coming through, and they are not just your age, but they are like, hang on, those people are younger than me. I wonder if that's the point that it really hits you.
I mean, it's fascinating because I'm similar, and that's the same memory as I have, but in a slightly different way. Well, you should know, Susan, when we grew up, when we were young, the English Premier League, the English football, it was populated by older men. There weren't that many young teens playing football. It was really older, balding men who lived to do open knee surgery. Football was so different. Essentially, everybody on the field just wanted to kick the crap out of each other and then shuffle off and have a pint and a pie and a cigarette at half time. This rise of teenagers has been, well, it's been one of the story of the past few seasons. Football becomes more about speed and movement and more, they're trained better at younger ages mentally. They're bred to be elite footballers, and it becomes more about energy and matchups, one-on-one duels. So you do get these teens with that vigour. Same for me though, Raw, when I thought about this question. When I was a kid, 22 or 23 was young for a footballer. By the way, 27 or 28 was old. That was like the window. And for me, it was the same. Wayne Rooney coming on at that age, August 17th, 2002. I realised in that moment, he could have been my son if I'd had a kid when I was 14. But stay with me here.
It's possible.
And the amazing thing is, Raw, now Wayne Rooney looks twice my age.
Yeah, I have aged much better than Wayne Rooney. That is, I mean, who's the real winner here?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Life is full of twists and turns, Susan. So if it is freaking you out, just stay. It's a long ball game. I am still going to get a call up for the United States. Never let go of your dreams, listeners, right, Ro?
Absolutely. It's interesting. You're right that footballers age in a weird way. So I remember Michael Owen's debut for Liverpool when he was 17, and I would have been nearly 17. And it didn't occur to me we were the same age. So my granddad, who played for Birmingham and Coventry, Rog, when he first broke into the Birmingham team, he was described as a bright young thing, and he was 28. So these things change.
And already a granddad.
Already look like a granddad. These things change. I mean, unfortunately, they're moving in the direction away from us. But still, they change. You never know. They might bounce back.
God bless. Everything has a reaction and a counter-reaction. Susan, send us your postal. We'll send you a coveted Men in Blazers patch. Keep sending your letters and questions for Raw and me. meninblazers@gmail.com. That is it for today. Before we go, we want to give one more huge thanks to the Bank of America, official bank of US soccer, and the FIFA World Cup 2026 for supporting us at the Men in Blazers Media Network. Gives us so much strength to do what we do, discover what's possible in sports and in life. What would you like the power to do? We are in New York City this week. We're actually off tomorrow night to the Stone Pony in New Jersey. I can't wait for this live show tomorrow to play that venue. History, the Americanness of it all, the Springsteen-ness. Is what life is all about. We've got Tyler Adams and more coming up this week during the international break. Rumours of a Flo Balogun appearance. But big thanks to you, Rory Smith, your Crown Prince of Harrogate.
Just delighted that there's no Premier League football for a couple of weeks, Roger. I can have a weekend where it doesn't break my heart.
I'm devoed. I am totally devoed. This is Rog, sending you big, big love. Let's not take a second. Watching football together for granted. Encourage.